What if the Industrial Revolution did not begin in a city, but along a river, not in one place, but across a landscape connected by water? Because before railways and roads, industry followed the Severn. Welcome to the making of Britain. The River Severn is often described in simple terms as the longest river in Britain, flowing from the Welsh Mountains to the Bristol Channel. But length alone does not explain its significance. What matters is how it moves through the landscape. The Severn links upland and lowland, interior and coast, connecting regions that might otherwise remain separate. It's a river that carries not just water, but possibilities. Long before industry took hold, it offered a route, a way of moving goods, people and ideas across a varied and often challenging terrain. Communities along the Severn developed with an awareness of what the river could provide. It was a source of food, a means of transport, and a natural boundary. Settlements formed at crossing points, at bends, and at places where the river could be navigated more easily. These were not random choices. They reflected an understanding of the river's behaviour, where it could be used, where it could be crossed, and where it offered advantage. Over time, these settlements became part of a wider network, linked by the movement of goods along the water. What makes the Severn particularly significant is not just the river itself, but what lies around it. The surrounding regions contain coal, iron ore, and other materials that would later become central to industrial development. These resources were not evenly distributed across Britain. Here, they existed in relative proximity, and crucially, they were connected by the river. This meant that the materials could be moved more easily than they could over land. The Severn did not create these resources, but it linked them. It turned separate deposits into part of a connected system. As you're still walking with me, can I ask you to drop me a like? It helps more than you can imagine, so thanks. By the 18th century, this combination of resources and transport began to transform the Severn Valley. Iron production expanded. Coal was extracted in greater quantities, and new techniques were developed to increase efficiency. Places like Ironbridge Gorge became centres of innovation, where the relationship between raw material and production was particularly strong. The river allowed these developments to spread, carrying materials to where they were needed and enabling production at larger scale. Industry did not appear everywhere at once. It concentrated where conditions allowed, and along the Severn, those conditions were present. At this point, it's worth considering how much of this development depended on the river itself. If the same resources had existed without a navigable river to connect them, would industry have grown in the same way? Or would it have been slower, more limited, more fragmented? Share your thoughts in the comments, because the relationship between geography and development is not always straightforward. Before the widespread use of canals and railways, rivers like the Severn functioned as the main infrastructure of movement. Boats carried raw materials downstream and finished goods to market. This was not always easy. The river could be unpredictable, with changing water levels and seasonal variations. And yet it remained more efficient than overland transport. The Severn acted as a corridor, a space through which industry could operate. It reduced distance, connected regions, and allowed for a level of coordination that would otherwise have been difficult to achieve. The Severn Valley was not just a place of extraction, it was a place of experimentation. Industrialists and engineers tested new methods, refined processes and adapted to challenges. Among them was Abraham Darby, whose work in iron production helped demonstrate the potential of coke as a fuel. These developments were not inevitable. They were responses to opportunity shaped by the resources and connections available. The river provided the setting in which these experiments could take place and have wider impact. By the way, if you subscribe, there's a whole back catalogue of videos like this for you to enjoy. Looking back, it's possible to see the Severn Valley as an obvious centre for early industry. But at the time, it was one option among many. The decisions made were based on practical considerations: proximity to resources, access to transport, the ability to move goods efficiently. The river made these decisions easier. It reduced costs, increased reliability, and allowed for growth. It made sense to build industry where the river could support it. The result was a concentration of activity that would help define the early stages of the industrial Britain. As canals and railways developed, the role of the Severn began to change. These new forms of transport offered greater control and predictability, reducing reliance on the river. Industry expanded beyond the river valley, and the importance of the Severn as a primary transport route declined. But its earlier role remained significant. It had provided the conditions in which industrialisation could begin, linking resources and enabling growth at a critical moment. Today, the Severn is not the industrial artery it once was, but its influence remains. The towns and regions that developed along its course still reflect their industrial past. The landscape bears the marks of extraction and production, even as it has been reshaped by time. The river itself continues to flow, unchanged in its basic course, even as the uses made of it have evolved. It's a reminder that geography does not determine history, but it shapes the possibilities within which history unfolds. If the Severn helped create the conditions for the Industrial Revolution, what does that suggest about the roles of rivers in shaping economic change? Are they simply routes, or are they something more? Connectors, enablers, catalysts? And if one river could help begin such a transformation, what are the others that carried people, goods, and ideas across Britain? YouTube has chosen this video especially for you because you've watched this. Watch it next, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. If you ding the bell, you'll be notified when episodes are published, so you don't miss any. Thanks for walking a little further down the road that built Britain with me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.